Good evening. How goes it? One, thank you for. Turns out, it. You see, I didn't mention this Chromebook is not an Acer. It turns out because it's a ASUS, it doesn't have the same kind of motherboard that will take that size. And I did a little research and I realized that that kind of DDR is uh, for a number of different motherboard, Mr. Trinkline that you'll see on here, Trinkling, um, that he was telling me actually how if you go Ryzen site, that if you get the parts part by part by part, you actually can save quite a bit on a machine that is hardcore. And so I, because I'm studying IT now on the side, I actually ended up finding out I did like a whole little thing. I'm a little late because I was like researching. Oh, okay. So motherboard, because I remember my father making a computer, putting it together. And so Saints I particularly like. This is actually something that I recently, in thinking back to um, confirmation, I had chosen Saint Dominic because I didn't know who else to pick. And so I actually have to do a bit of searching um, because there's certain saints that have come. You see, I wear Saint Benedict's medal, and I have actually this small book. It's a Benedictine. It's a book that's like the Benedictine rule, and it's a challenge. All the early saints, early church fathers, uh, boy oh boy, did it's a challenge, So looks like I'll have to put together a computer to become an IT person because that makes perfect sense that I would have to do that. So I want to thank you for it's an extra challenge. It's an extra challenge. Um, okay, all right, and yes, and it was just the symbology on it, and then I looked into it, and it's one of the few things I've ever worn on. I can't wear anything. It will break. Anything I wear on my body just breaks and falls off. It just at some point inevitably. This is one of the only things that not only have I've fallen asleep with this on. I've it so that was that. See, there's some things I'm like, that's a strange coincidence. Yeah, but as as any of you might have noticed from the earlier readings today, that fewer and fewer things as the time has come to this point in my life, fewer and fewer things. Ah, thank you very much. Have become simply coincidence. I now I'm okay. This There we are. I have to start really looking into this. I have to start really taking. You see, the whole point of a lot of my returning. My mother, uh, she died when I was in high school of cancer, and my father shortly thereafter. So that by 21, I had buried them both. And my mother had said when I was in, just would always say, when you grow up, you'll be a priest. And I would get all upset. I thought, I want to be a cool guy with a car, or I don't know why. It had this distinct idea that I knew I liked girls, and um, I thought cars were, well, priests aren't allowed to own cars. I wanted those two things. Didn't really understand the car thing when I think back on it, where that came from. But for some reason, I had this distinct idea that priests can own cars. Um, and oh, mom and invented the that idea of priesthood and all that. But I think saw something in me that was. Let's begin. So to many ways, do like my grasping of Taoism, Buddhism, philosophy, and reading all these Freemasons works and such. And but she it she she was the Jesus person. Mark 5:20 through 34. I'm actually going to do 21 through 43 in the New International Version. A dead girl and a sick woman. When Jesus had again crossed by both the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him. While he was by seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus behind him in the crowd and stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciple answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." While Jesus was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, "Don't be afraid, just believe." Except Peter, John, brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw commotion with people crying and wailing loudly, and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha koum," which means, "Little girl." So the law was put in. We are no longer under the supervision of the law, sons of God. You are all subject guardians, but calls out, "God, here." I'll tell you when we're in space at some point, but it looks like I'll have. "Lord is a haven for the oppressed, a haven in times of trouble. Those who know your name trust you, for you do not abandon those who turn to you, O Lord." Sing a hymn to the Lord who reigns. He who requires you, Lord, sing in the gate of fair Zion. I might tell result in your deliverance. The nations sink in the pit they have made. They're caught in the net they have hidden. The Lord has made himself known and is snared by his own devices. All for the hope of the living forever lost, rise, O Lord. Let not men have power and be judged. They are only men. Of course, it's buffering. Of course, buffering. Well, with that, I'm going to get going. And yeah, there we are. I think with that, I'm online. And so if anybody's going to be playing online, I'll see you there. And I'll see all of you tomorrow. Take care. And if you get a chance, check it out, and yeah, take care.